Every time I sit down at my Windows PC now, even logging in feels different. On my machine, something as basic as signing in has quietly stopped being simple. The operating system I grew up with now insists that I tie my personal computer to an online account before it will even let me reach the desktop. It is no longer just a login. It feels like an identity checkpoint, my identity, my data, my habits, all linked from the very first moment I turn the machine on. Every time I sit down at my Windows PC now, even logging in feels different. On newer Windows 11 setups I have used, the option to create a local account has been pushed deeper and deeper into the background, or removed entirely in the Home Edition. What used to be a straightforward choice between a local user and an online account during setup has transformed into something far more manipulative. Instead of presenting both options equally on screen, Microsoft engineered a funnel that constantly nudges me toward using a Microsoft account from the very first screen. Skip prompts appear with language designed to create doubt. I am told I am missing out on essential features, enhanced security updates, seamless backups, and personalized recommendations. The underlying message hits hard. My computer is not really set up properly unless it is fully attached to Microsoft Cloud services, feeding data back to their servers before I can even save my first file. At first, those arguments sounded reasonable to me. Sync my settings across all my devices effortlessly, restore my applications and preferences quickly after a reinstall, access my files from anywhere with just a browser. Convenience seemed worth the trade-off. But as I lived with it day after day, the more I realized what I was actually trading away for that convenience. My sign-in credentials were no longer just a simple password stored locally on one machine, protected by my own recovery methods. They had become an entry point into a much larger interconnected system controlled by Microsoft. Every login now connected my specific device activity, my application usage patterns, my in-app purchases, even the exact way I configured my desktop wallpaper, taskbar layout, and keyboard shortcuts. Every single time I entered my password, I was not merely unlocking a local device, I was stepping back into a sprawling ecosystem that expected, and increasingly demanded, that I remain permanently online and connected. That shift in perspective changed everything for me. The real issue crystallized when I forced myself to think through worst-case scenarios. What happens if that central online account gets locked, compromised through no fault of my own, or disabled by some automated system flag? If my Microsoft account encounters any problem, it is not just a cloud-based email inbox or OneDrive folder that becomes inaccessible. That single account serves as the master key that unlocks my entire Windows experience across every device where I have signed in. I have read numerous accounts from other users who suddenly lost access to their Microsoft accounts due to overzealous automated moderation, mistaken security flags, or even simple verification failures during travel. Those stories made me imagine the nightmare scenario playing out in my own life. My primary work machine, loaded with years of projects, client files, and custom workflows, suddenly becomes a useless brick because one remote server decided my login looked suspicious. One automated decision made thousands of miles away could lock me out of both my cloud data and my local desktop simultaneously, leaving me scrambling to prove my identity to a corporate help desk while deadlines loomed. That dependency felt increasingly oppressive, and it was not just theoretical anxiety in my mind. I experienced the practical frustrations firsthand during actual Windows 11 setup processes. The installation flow aggressively pushes me to sign in with a Microsoft account early in the process to proceed smoothly to the desktop. Disconnect your internet during out-of-the-box experience, and suddenly, the setup becomes a battle of workarounds and hidden menus. If I am in a location with unreliable connectivity, like traveling through rural areas or dealing with spotty hotel Wi-Fi, the entire experience degrades into frustration. Commands that once worked reliably to bypass the online requirement get patched out in updates. An operating system that built its early reputation on running reliably anywhere, even on minimal hardware with no network, now feels fundamentally incomplete and broken unless it can successfully phone home to Microsoft servers for validation. For corporate managed machines under IT department control, that level of cloud dependency might make logistical sense. For my personal laptop, purchased outright with my own money for my own workflows, it registers as unnecessary and intrusive control over hardware that should serve me, not a remote corporation. The more closely I paid attention to my daily experience, the more I noticed how this account requirement intersected with another deeply uncomfortable layer of Windows telemetry. Even configured to its absolute lowest diagnostic data level, Windows continuously collects detailed information about system performance metrics, application launch frequency and crash patterns, installed software inventories, and even user configuration choices. Standing alone, basic diagnostic data collection does not shock me. Many modern platforms gather similar usage statistics to improve stability. However, when that same diagnostic stream gets explicitly tied to a persistent online Microsoft account and unique device identifiers, the collected information transforms into something far more powerful. It becomes part of a comprehensive, long-running behavioral profile, documenting exactly how I interact with my computer over months or years. Every application crash I experience, every software installation I perform, every system update I apply or skip all flow back into analytic systems I cannot audit or control. That opaque feedback loop runs constantly in the background, building a digital fingerprint of my computing habits without ever asking for explicit, informed consent. What truly disturbed me went beyond any single privacy setting or toggle. The real problem lies in how thoroughly and systematically the Microsoft account expectation permeates every layer of the Windows experience. Microsoft Store App Access requires it for full functionality. Cloud backup prompts in File Explorer default to OneDrive integration, requiring it. Cross-device clipboard syncing demands it. Even Edge browser sign-in for password autofill and collection sync ties back to that same central identity hub. Small conveniences like remembering my preferred dark mode setting or last used display arrangement across machines all funneled through the same account infrastructure. The deeper I allowed Windows to integrate these features into my workflow, the more obvious it became that rejecting the account linkage in one specific area did not grant true independence. Saying no simply triggered the need to repeat that rejection across multiple interfaces, repeatedly, update after update, as the system persistently attempted to re-establish the connection. I began paying attention to exactly how frequently and creatively the operating system tried to reopen that same account door. A persistent notification would appear, claiming I needed to finish setting up my device properly. Settings panels would display prominent prompts urging me to sign in to fully sync my personalized experience. Security-focused dialogues would suggest that enabling full account management across my devices would make everything more secure through advanced threat protection. What began as seemingly helpful guidance gradually transformed into something that felt like coordinated pressure. At no point did Microsoft ever present me with a simple, honest, unambiguous question during setup or updates. Do you want an operating system that functions entirely offline under your exclusive control with no external accounts or cloud dependencies whatsoever? That fundamental choice existed prominently in older Windows versions like Windows 7 and Windows 10. In Windows 11, preserving true local-only control feels like waging a continuous defensive battle against a system specifically designed to eliminate that option. The absolute tipping point arrived when I forced myself to confront the most realistic worst-case scenarios with unflinching clarity. Imagine someone successfully compromises my central Microsoft account through phishing, credential stuffing, or some other vector. They do not merely gain access to cloud-based email and file storage. They immediately inherit partial or full control over every other Windows device, phone, or tablet where I have enabled that same account for deeper integration, travel internationally, and trigger an automated suspicious sign-in detection. Suddenly, I find myself locked out entirely, forced to battle chatbot verification systems and email-based recovery flows, while my primary work laptop sits frozen at the login screen, inaccessible until corporate servers validate my identity. I transitioned from simply managing local passwords stored securely on my own hardware to maintaining a complex, fragile relationship with a remote corporate gatekeeper service that maintains final authority over when and how I access my own physical machine. That stark realization marked the moment I truly understood why Linux Mint felt so profoundly different during my trial installations. When I boot up the Mint installer, it poses exactly one straightforward question. During user creation, create a local user account with your preferred name and password. That account exists solely and permanently on that specific machine, governed entirely by local permissions and recovery methods I control directly. No setup screen demands that I sign into an external corporate authentication service. No persistent background process maintains a constant tie to some distant identity provider halfway across the world. If I later decide I want selective cloud synchronization for specific folders or browser data, I choose exactly which third-party tools to install and precisely how to configure them. Network connectivity fails during daily use, and nothing degrades or breaks. My customized desktop environment loads immediately. My installed applications launch normally, and zero system components nag me to complete some half-finished online registration process I never consented to start. On Linux Mint specifically, no single centralized account credential exists that some remote server could arbitrarily lock, instantly crippling my local access across multiple devices, commit a configuration error, boot into recovery mode, and fix it directly on that hardware without external permissions. Decide a particular cloud sync solution no longer suits my needs. Uninstall it cleanly without ripple effects across the entire system. The operating system makes no foundational assumption that it inherently owns or needs to manage my personal identity. Instead, it delivers a clean, neutral workspace where I establish my own rules and boundaries. After enduring years of increasingly sophisticated subtle pressure designed to funnel every workflow back toward one mandatory corporate login hub, experiencing that level of genuine sovereignty felt almost revolutionary in its simplicity. Over months of reflection and experimentation, I gradually recognized that the Microsoft forced account model represented far more than mere technical inconvenience or user interface clutter. It signaled a fundamental shift in underlying priorities and philosophy. Windows evolves rapidly toward a service-first platform architecture where my unique identity, behavioral data patterns, and expressed preferences serve as extremely valuable raw inputs fueling sophisticated machine learning models and targeted business strategies. That underlying business model carries no inherent malice, but neither does it maintain genuine neutrality toward my preferences as an individual user. Every instance of friction I encountered, every carefully worded prompt pushing me toward deeper account integration, served as my intuition delivering repeated warnings. This evolving relationship between me and my operating system had become fundamentally unbalanced, prioritizing corporate objectives over individual autonomy. Ultimately, that cumulative realization provided the final push I needed to permanently step away from Windows after 35 years of daily use. No single catastrophic privacy scandal or headline-grabbing security flaw triggered my departure. Rather, I witnessed and experienced a steady, deliberate evolution from an independent tool existing entirely under my control to a complex managed service, demanding I log in repeatedly under someone else's established rules and monitoring. My personal breaking point crystallized around recognizing that nearly every meaningful path through modern Windows settings, features, and conveniences inevitably circled back to that singular non-negotiable requirement: sign in with Microsoft account, enable full sync, establish persistent connections, and share comprehensive telemetry. When the foundational core of my daily computing environment insists upon that degree of mandatory attachment to a single corporate identity provider, I must confront the uncomfortable reality of who maintains true authority over my personal hardware. Today on Linux Mint, my login credentials belong entirely to me, stored securely under my exclusive control. My customized desktop environment launches immediately without requiring validation or permission from any distant authentication server. Should I ever choose to migrate to different hardware or a new distribution entirely, I face no convoluted process to untangle my entire digital identity from a sprawling interconnected web of mandatory vendor services. Simple targeted backups of my documents, configurations, and application data suffice. Fresh installation proceeds smoothly, continuity restored. That profound sense of genuine independence and ownership represents precisely what felt progressively absent during my final years with Windows. Once I recaptured that fundamental freedom of computing without compromise, returning to the previous constraint arrangement became unthinkable. Like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you never miss our latest tech breakdowns.